Hey there, I'm Dr. Dave, and this is Microdose U. Thanks so much for being with me today. So many of you have issues with some type of a job, a relationship, the work that you're doing that you're not really aligned with, but you might not even be recognizing this. And if you continue this, they are surely wreaking havoc on your mental health and a lot more. So, how do you recognize this? How do you recognize if something going on in your life is not really working for you? And then, if you find that out, what do you really do about it? Well, today I'm going to be having a great discussion with Jake Staniski. He's a local Salt Lake City psychedelic facilitator. We're doing this in a local tea shop. So please bear with me if the sound quality is not studio quality. The information you're going to get from this is really, really going to be valuable. So stick with it. Oh, and also, I'm going to be putting Jake's contact information and anything you need to know in the show notes. So please be sure to check that all out. Welcome, Jake.
Enter the world of magic mushrooms with Microdose U.
We're going to help some people today because I want to kind of get into your story and your life and find out what you're doing, how you got to where you are now. So I don't know if you want to start with just that. It's not really much of a question, but tell me kind of about what Jake is up to these days and how did you get there?
I think it's probably best to start an abbreviated version at the beginning. I'm originally an East Coast kid, a Jersey boy, born and raised out there, and never quite identified with the culture out there. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of energies. I'm grateful to be raised there. I think it rounded me well, and just kind of fell into the normal rhythm of things out there. Went to school in Connecticut, and then immediately after graduating, moved to Manhattan and entered the rat race, if you will. And loved New York for a lot of reasons, but also it was quite taxing. So I was working sales jobs, and at that point, without really knowing it, just kind of chasing paychecks and more money, nicer apartment, more things, really kind of living it what to me was a bit of an empty existence. Um, Around 25, I had quite severe depression and anxiety. Ended up kind of hitting the red button and leaving my job, which many would say was, it was a very good job based on the money I was making and the perks of it, but I was very unhappy there, and ending a relationship that seemed to be wilting, getting rid of my apartment, and at that point, bought a one-way ticket to Australia. That resulted in a year of budget solo travel, which was probably one of the most pivotal moments of my life. And that culminated in an experience in Amsterdam the very last day before I flew back to New York, um, where I was reintroduced to magic mushrooms in the form of truffles, as they call it in Amsterdam. Um, I was quite into psychedelics early in life. My first experience, I was 14, um, and really loved the recreational side of them, doing them with friends. Didn't use it much for therapeutics at that point, though. And at the point that I did it in Amsterdam, I had about a 5 year break from them. Looking back, I realized that I was quite afraid to face myself in the mirror, as they are the great amplifier. But yeah, I'm making a long story not short, but ended up having an experience there. It was wonderful. I came back stateside, and at that point was truly following my heart. That brought me to a job working wilderness therapy out in Utah, working with troubled adolescents, 13 to 17, down in the desert, which was my first experience working a job that truly filled my soul. Continued to work jobs in the mental health industry, to get where I am eventually, working full time as a psychedelic guide or a facilitator, facilitating therapeutic experiences for folks. And that's where I am now. So I have a private practice under the name Soul Passage, and I have been accepted into a network of folks under the name of Psychedelic Passage, which is about 25 facilitators nationwide, a network of facilitators, which has been extremely beneficial to me in my practice to open up into the wider world of facilitation and have some people to bounce ideas off. So yeah, that's where I'm at these days.
You know, it's an interesting story because I think we have a lot of parallels, a lot in common. Now, I've got how old are you right now, Jake? I know you said you were 25 when I think you said 25 when you took off to Australia or something. But
Yeah.
how old are you now?
So I'm 32, a few months away from 33 at this point.
Okay, well, may I be the first to wish you a happy birthday early. But
Thank you.
but I think we've got a lot in common as far as East Coast people holding jobs that seem like they were, to most people, seem like very successful and really good jobs that most people would say, oh, you've got a great job like that. Why would you ever leave? But something inside of both of us felt like it wasn't really right. It wasn't really resonating with me, and it sounds like it wasn't resonating with you. So we realized that and said, I've got to do something different. Now, this happened to me much later in life. I was a dentist and a dental speaker, and people would say that was, you know, quite successful on the East Coast. But like you said, crowded. I didn't love the landscape of the East Coast like I love out west here now. And my wife and I one day just said we're gonna sell everything we own and just move out west. Now, we didn't go to Australia first. We didn't go to Amsterdam first. We just moved out west. But you had some other stops before you came west. And I'm just curious. When you went to Amsterdam, what made you get into psychedelics again? Was it not recreation at this point? Were you searching for a way to change your life and get out of this depression and anxiety, or whatever exactly it was you had? Why did you decide to get into truffles out there?
I had avoided them for so long. So about 20, I wasn't able to smoke marijuana anymore, and I had been smoking marijuana for about 7 years at that point. And there was a switch that was flipped into where I was extremely paranoid, anxious when I would. And now looking back, I realized that I had some traumas that were unspoken for at that point. And marijuana, obviously non-traditional psychedelic, but along with the long list of hallucinogenics, is an amplifier into emotions. And I wasn't quite sure how to deal with my emotions. I think you pair that with the fact that I was living a very misaligned life, a life that wasn't true to myself. I did not want to face myself and look myself in the mirror because I think I would have been ashamed, and I wasn't ready to own up to that. It was only after the year of travel, a full year of working on myself, and a lot of time spent alone, and a lot of time having beautiful experiences with strangers, and yeah, everything that comes with the expansion there, that I found myself able to look at myself in the mirror again. And it was one of the most profound experiences of my life. Truly felt like a rebirth, like a full fresh start on life, with the ethos being follow your heart, truly listen to what it is your mind, body, and soul needs. And from there, things have just fallen in place in a way that I've never questioned it again. It truly changed my perspective and my thinking, and for that, I'm forever grateful.
And is that the main reason that you have dedicated your life to helping others now, that may be in a similar situation or experienced trauma or some other type of mental health issue? You're helping them find themselves and get out of that what they're caught up with.
Yeah, it's absolutely one of the reasons. If I could find some realignment, I would hope that others can. And I just know from personal experience, when I was misaligned, I was crankier. I was I wasn't living in my gifts, and I'm a believer that if you're not living in your gifts, you're not able to contribute as much as you can to the world. And yeah, I'm just a believer in, if everyone is living in their gifts and everyone is contributing to their fullest extent, the world, of course, it would make sense. Logically, it would be a little bit of a better place. So yeah, I would say that is one of my hopes, in the clients I work with, is to uncover um, some gems that they already have and plant in the ground, just kind of excavate them and shine them up, and hopefully, yeah, let them shine bright and see where life takes them from there.
But a lot of people are listening or watching this episode on video or audio. If they want to see us, they can watch on video. But and many of them, I'm sure, are like you and I used to be. You know, they're going to a job every day that appears to be successful. They've got their family, they've got their friends, they're doing their stuff. How does somebody really know if they're aligned with what they're doing? I mean, I knew in my heart, I've got to say this, from the day I started dental school, I knew in my heart from day one that this really wasn't for me. It wasn't a perfect alignment with me. However, being, you know, 20, in your 20s, it's very hard to say to your family and to your friends and to, you know, to your spouse or whoever that I'm in the wrong place. I got to get out. It's very difficult. So we just go with the program, and then one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden, I'm sitting in a dental office treating patients. There are many other people in that situation watching or listening, and you know they may not be dentists, but they may be something else. How does one truly know if they're doing what they're meant to do or what they're aligned with?
I'd say it's not easy. You live in a world full of distractions, and some would say a world telling us the wrong messaging to make money so that you could buy this, or make money so that you could compare yourself to this person. And it's extremely difficult. Um, in my own story, I didn't know much. I entered college when I was 17, and I had to choose a major, and I only knew two paths. My mom was a psychologist, and my dad was in sales. My dad made more money, and I knew I had all these student debts, so in that, probably should have went with psychology looking at my path now. But I went with business. I got a business degree, and fell into a path of working sales. And at that point, I wasn't at all, I don't even think I knew the word alignment or being attuned, or I wasn't listening really to anything. I was just like, what, I was living from a place of scarcity. I knew that I needed money, and what was going to make me money was working a sales job. Um, and I could also speak to where I'm currently at. I think the path of listening to your heart and deciphering what the right path is continuous, and it takes constant practice, and it will forever take practice, because I still have moments where I'm running my own business facilitating, and I am so filled up with the zest of life doing so, and when I work with clients it feels so right. But I am running my own business, and sometimes I have great months and sometimes I have slower months. And when I have those slower months and I have bills, I'm like, wow, I could go back to a job and make this much money. But it is that, again, is operating from that scarcity mindset versus sitting with myself and reminding myself of my purpose and why I do what I do, and being open to the magic and letting it flow freely. Um, but yeah, all to say, it's constant work, and it's a constant practice of listening to what's around, but also really tuning in with yourself, and um, determining why you're taking the actions that you're doing, or why you're even thinking the thoughts that you're thinking.
You know, and also to add to that, what we do for a living is major, of course, but also there are many people, and including myself in my first marriage, that are in relationships, and they on some level probably say, well, it's not perfect, and I'm gonna, it's not great, but there's nothing else, there's nobody else out there for me, or there's nothing else I can do. So I'm finding that so many people that are not aligned with what they're doing for a living, or not aligned with their relationship, just tend to stay in the same thing day after day because they're afraid of the unknown. Okay, Leah, I could get out of this relationship, but I'm afraid of what might happen. At least I know this might not be great, but I know what it is. I know exactly what it is. So I'm okay continuing it. And same thing with work and many other things. And it sounds like that's where you were, and that's where I was as well. And both of us had the guts to say, no, this is not working, and I need to change. But I still feel, Jake, that most people don't have that courage to say that I'm gonna change my entire life because this isn't working for me.
I get it. I think it is. I mean, it's scary, and courage may even be an understatement. Like I I only did it because I was in such a dark place. It was kind of rock bottom, and I was at a pivotal moment in my life where I'm like, okay, I'm 25, like I can make some changes and see how things play out. And if they don't work, I could always go back and get a job like this. But it's scary, and I was extremely blessed to be in that situation and be from a place of um, opportunity enough to give me the leeway to say things will work out. Not everyone has that. So I get that people are in different situations and have different responsibilities. What I will say is it seems that when you're living in if one thing is misaligned, your job, and then from there also your relationship and maybe the way you take care of your body, there's this like trickle down effect where everything just kind of forms into one, and you're like, well, what's the point of fixing one thing if I hate my job or I'm in an unhappy relationship? And the same is true to where if you are listening to your soul and living your purpose, if you're working a job that you absolutely love and feel very aligned to, then you're probably going to want a partner that supports you and appreciates that and loves that for you. And your standards are going to be higher because your self-confidence is going to be higher, and the respect that you have for yourself is going to be higher. And if your respect's higher, you probably want to take care of your body. So it seems to be that domino effect. But it is about making and finding the courage to make that first step. And I think that comes from a confidence of knowing that things are going to work out. And I think that the confidence knowing that things are going to work out comes from you need some reps. You need to hear that and see that in the universe a few times. Um, so yeah, I understand it not being easy, but I think if you get a little, you take that step and you get a little feedback, it could help.
But is there ever a situation where, and again, I'm getting back to somebody that's listening or watching to us right now, and they're saying to themselves, yeah, but you know, I don't love my job, and I'm not, maybe my relationship, my marriage is not fantastic, but I've got a couple of kids, and I've got to be bringing this money in, or we're not going to be able to eat. So I can't make any changes at all. Is there ever a situation where somebody realizes that they're not living in a life they're aligned with, but they just can't, they know they can't change. They can't do anything different. Is that ever true, or can we always change no matter what?
It's true on so many levels. The last client I worked with, I sat with last week, and won't share any specifics, but he's 34, two young girls, about to have his third. In a relationship, he feels perhaps he got in a little too early, working a job he kind of loathes at this point. But he has responsibilities. He's about to have a son that's actually due today. I think they're inducing tomorrow. So he has a lot more responsibilities, and I can't just, me, who has no kids, and I can't just say, listen, man, just quit your job and do what you love. Like, he has responsibilities to live up to, and I understand that. But at the same time, I think it's important to take a few steps, because he came to the realization that he is so misaligned, that he has been attaching his identity so much to this relationship that he's been in since he was 16, that he kind of forgot who he is. And I think the first step for him is not to make a drastic move. I would agree that would probably be ill-advised. The first step maybe is to take some time. Maybe go down to the desert, just him, for 3 days, and just sit, just be quiet. Leave your phone, maybe take a couple books. Just realign with yourself and remind yourself who you are, and then take those necessary steps from there. Perhaps he gets insights that, I should probably start running. And who knows, from running, then he starts to eat healthier and starts to feel better. And maybe a lot of the mental issues that he has, the depression and anxiety, start to take care of themselves with physical fitness and eating and a healthy gut. So yeah, I'm a firm believer in taking just a small step, open up the window a little bit, let a little light in. And I think that a lot of my clients they're at the point, if they're coming to sit with the medicine that I work with, they're at the point where it's drastic and they need a change, and they need a little bit of a push, just to open up that window and let some light in.
On some of my shows in the past, I've said to people, and I'm a firm believer in this also, and even if you're in a great relationship and you love your job, take some time by yourself. And that doesn't mean just go out to dinner by yourself and then come home. It means, go somewhere, drive or fly or whatever you have to do, stay in a hotel or camp out or backpack or whatever you do, but be in solitude, be with yourself, and just think, and just clear your mind and think about life, think about yourself. And it's interesting that you just said that, 'cause I think that's one of the most powerful things that we can do. Again, even if things are really good in your life, for example, my marriage is great, and look, but I was in a bad marriage at first, so I know both ways. But even though things are so good in my life right now, I said to my wife a few weeks ago, I'm gonna go to Las Vegas, and I'm gonna just hang by myself, and I'm gonna see some shows and just spend time by myself. And I saw a good concert or two, and those are the kind of things that, like, kind of almost like rejuvenate my life, like get me back to, even though I'm always passionate, it gets things even better. So Jake, I think that's great advice that you gave your client. Just go down to the desert for a little while, just think, sit by yourself, sit with yourself.
I think it's an extremely powerful tool that people, especially in today's society, don't take advantage of. Where, I mean, if you look throughout civilization, think of agriculture and how many people were farmers, and how many people were out there tending the fields in solitude for the entire day, just listening to the wind, listening to their own thoughts. And we are in a place in human society where we're always reaching for a distraction. We don't even, and I fall victim to, where I don't even give myself the full time to let a thought form, and I reach for my phone because I'm bored. And when I'm doing that, I know that I'm not in a great place, and I need to delete whatever apps are distracting me. I think that being alone is a superpower that we all have and could teach ourselves. And to do it right, it's going to hurt. It's going to suck for a little bit. It's going to be painful, and you need to push past that pain to get the benefits, just like meditation, right? Where, like, meditation kind of sucks at first, but if you keep doing it, you start to build the practice, you start to build that muscle. And it was something that I first learned when I did do that solo trip, and I was alone a lot, and I felt what loneliness was, and I was uncomfortable, and it pushed me out of my comfort zone and allowed me to go and talk to people in hostels and develop these interpersonal skills that I didn't have before. But it also let me just be alone and be with my thoughts. And I became very okay with myself, because ultimately that's all we have is ourselves and our consciousness and our thoughts. So if you could be okay with yourself, I think there's a lot of power there. One last thing I'll say on that is I've been, so I got a lot of my own personal healing down in the desert. And it was also where I learned to heal, working with teenagers. And we were down the San Rafael Swell for a wilderness therapy program called Elements. And it was a tremendous experience. And it taught me the power of quiet. And in that time, they were stripped from all creature comforts, including their phone, no music. We were just out there in the desert. They were out there for about 3 months at a time. Us as mentors would do 8-day shifts. It was pretty rugged, and the stillness taught me that this is always at our fingertips. It's just a matter of if we want it. And recently, I've been going on my own, for lack of a better term, they've been vision quests, where I go back down to the swell, San Rafael Swell here in central Utah is a very healing place for me. So I go down there 3 days fasted and feeling very clean and very clear, and sit with my own medicine, and then eventually break my fast. And then what ends up being a pretty spiritual practice for me, rejuvenating my body and giving myself those nutrients. But talk about signs never coming in quite so clear than when I go down fasted with the intention, showing up for myself, saying, you know what, I'm not going to eat a thing for 3 days. I'm going to show my devotion to myself and to my spirit and to whatever God that I or anyone else believes in. That for me seems to be the quickest way to realign and to remember who I am. It's a bit extreme for sure, so I wouldn't recommend it for everyone. But it's something that I'm very passionate about, and it's interesting. It's 3 days. It's really only one day down in the desert. Like, I think most of us could find that time. Again, it's a tool that is at our fingertips. It's just a matter of if you want it and if you're willing.
I remember several weeks after I got divorced, actually. This is back in 2001, I think. Yeah, 2001. So quite some time ago. Because I just talked to you about Las Vegas, and nobody would in their right mind would say Las Vegas is a peaceful place to go to meditate and just be in solitude. It's not. However, right after I got divorced, I packed up my backpack and I went out on the Appalachian Trail by myself for 3 days. And 3 days is not a lot of time, but it was in the winter. I remember that I was like the only crazy person on this trail backpacking. A snowstorm was coming in, but I was by myself, and I'll never forget this. I was able to spend 3 full days just in solitude, being by myself, and that helped incredibly well. Now I didn't fast, because when you're backpacking for 3 days, I don't think you want to fast. You need the energy. But I do want to know. It's interesting. So you say you go to the desert and you spend 3 days without food or water. Tell me a little bit more about your fast, because I don't think you're not drinking anything either, right?
No, so it's not a dry fast. I do drink water. It and there are benefits to a dry fast for sure, but for me being out there alone, I want to take care of my body enough and give myself enough nutrients to at least sustain. So I'm drinking water, but only water, no coffee, no tea,
Mm.
nothing that's going to break that fast. And outside of the physiological benefits, of which there are many, and I feel very much, it's it's a it's a practice in devotion to myself and how much I'll show up for myself. And it's also just a re-examination of food. And I think that, from food nourishment comes life and life force. And it's very important for us to re-examine what that relationship is, because I've had so many instances where I'm not feeling great and I'm just binge eating and just so quickly eating food. And a slight example, I grew up in a non-religious household. I'm of Italian descent. My family's Roman Catholic. I was baptized, but that was it. parents never found a church that really spoke to them. Their God was the golden rule: treat others the way you'd like to be treated, and always abide by that. But no real spirituality, no church, no organized religion. And we never prayed over meals. And it wasn't until I met my partner of 4 years now, Michaela, that our life has felt a bit like a fairy tale, and we're extremely grateful in every moment. And Michaela is so good at slowing down and listening and practicing gratitude that we try for every meal, every time we ingest food, to say a prayer. And it's different than the prayers that we used to say at Christmas or Easter, the 2 times that we would. Just kind of felt like we were reading a script, where we do a grateful practice and say what we're grateful for that day. And it's just taking a pause, taking a moment before we ingest the food, one of the greatest gifts of all. It's a practice that I think we will continue forth with our family.
Could you share an example of maybe something that you would say before a meal? I'm very curious.
Absolutely. So it actually started going back to Elements program before bed every night. So it'd be about 4 field mentors and about 10 to 12 kids in a group. And we'd stand around the fire, because we'd always have fire, we'd be camping. And before we put it out, under a desert moon with stars, we'd go around and we'd do a grateful group, it was called. And you could ramble for as long as you want. And I brought that practice to Michaela, and that's what started it. And it could be anything as large as, I'm grateful for God and for the fact that he showed me my purpose and how I could help everything. Or it could be as small as, a blade of grass, or this ladybug, or the fact that snails, my girlfriend's an insect freak. She texted me this fact today, and this is a grateful. Snails have they have the ability to reproduce with themselves, and they could do that and reproduce and make babies, but they choose not to. Maybe there's something, they have some love in their system, and they choose to come together and commune and reproduce that way. So something as silly as that, seemingly silly as that, I'm grateful for that fact, because that's a little bit of magic, and that little bit of magic in life keeps me going, and I love it. So yeah, it's sometimes they ramble, sometimes they're a little quicker because I'm hungry, but we try to do it every night.
I'll tell you something. I'm going to start that. Sometimes my wife and I do that, and she's Japanese. She lived most of her life in Japan, so we always will say something before we eat. We'll say like itadakimasu, which loosely translated means thank you for the food I'm about to ingest, or thank you for the life that you gave so we can eat this food. Again, it's not an exact translation. So that's something that almost all Japanese people will say before eating anything, itadakimasu. But your idea, just to like talk a little bit more about something that's you're thankful for. I love it. I'm gonna start it. I promise. I'm curious also, getting back to your client, and of course keeping complete confidentiality. We have no idea who this person is, so that's okay. What's the next step though? You say I think you said you suggested that he go spend some time by himself, but let's say he does that and comes back and maybe feels a little bit better, but still he's in a job and a relationship that are not really working, but has to support kids. What's your next step with him? How are you going to help him more, get to where he needs to be?
So with all my clients, I lead a 3-step process, and it starts with preparation, then obviously the ceremony, and then perhaps the most important pillar is integration, and taking the lessons from the ceremony, what we learn, and putting them into practice. And at that point, it turns into my role a little bit more of coaching. I don't like that term, life coach, because it has a whole nother stigma, but it is a little more of identifying the lessons, the insights that you've got. What I like to do, I like things in threes. Um, so the order of three for that one would be first identify the insight that you have, and then second step is come up with the absolute best case scenario. Let your mind expand. I'm a firm believer in the practice of manifestation. I think to truly manifest what it is that we want, we need to see the best case scenario. We need to be shooting for something. And then the third step is, okay, let's break it down. What's the first thing that we need to do? And let's build the path. So, for example, if he gets the insight, okay, I need to work out more. Great. What's the absolute best case scenario? I am running 10 miles every day. I'm extremely fit. From that, I get so much energy. I get so much dopamine. I'm not depressed anymore. I live a long, healthy life. I live till 95. I'm able to pick up my great grandchild. Great. All right. What's the first step, and how to accomplish that? Go to the gym. Get a gym membership. Get a pair of running shoes. Make a plan. Tell your wife that you're going to do it. When you tell people about things, you're less likely to not accomplish them. So yeah, taking those next steps. So that's integration in a nutshell. It's constant communication. I have multiple calls with my clients to check-ins. So that first call is kind of about diving into those and determining what steps we're going to take. And then it is a matter of accountability and checking in with the clients. But in this work, it is, I'm a guide, I'm a facilitator, but I can't do the work for them, right? They need to show up for themselves. And that starts in preparation. They need to prepare for the ceremony, because it's very true that the more you prepare for the ceremony, the more effective it's going to be. If you come in having McDonald's breakfast and not doing any meditation or journaling before your intention, it's not going to be as effective as a ceremony as if you were to do the work beforehand. So yeah, that bleeds into integration and showing up for yourself, and kind of goes back to that devotion that we were talking about. How devoted are you to the change that you desire?
Where do you normally do the ceremony? Do you do this at your house, or do you do it at their house, or do you do it out in nature? Where do you find is the best place for you to do a ceremony with your client?
Totally dependent. So in my practice, I'm in Salt Lake, as was mentioned, and there are a lot of Salt Lake clients or Utah local clients. Being part of the Psychedelic Passage Network, I do get a lot of clients from out of state. Sometimes they like to fly in and have a little bit of a getaway, get away from their normal lives. Sometimes they like me to fly out. So I've flown to Alaska. I'm flying to Boise in a few weeks, going down to Arizona. So it depends on the client and where they're most comfortable. If they have a space that is conducive to a healing ceremony, fantastic. If they need a break from it, I always offer my house. I have a cute little bungalow here in Sugar House that has a sound system and a nice day bed, and it's been tried and tested many times for ceremony. And that is kind of nice, offering a neutral setting for the work to be done. So I would say about 80% of the time I do end up doing a ceremony in my own space, my own house.
So at what point do you understand whether your work is actually successful with a client? And do you have any clients that just don't work out, that are just, no matter what you try to do with them, they're stuck in the same space and they just can't get out?
This work is filled with nuance, I'd say. It's filled with variables, because each ceremony is so different, and each experience from each client coming in is so different. I have many clients that will come in and have a completely life altering experience right in that day, and will forever be changed, and will have this glow about them. I have other ones that will have extremely challenging experiences, and that's no problem. It's just part of the work. It means that there was some real stuff that had to come up, but that day they may not be super bright and bubbly. It may be a week after an integration that they start to have these insights and start to be grounded again, that they can start making those changes. It may be 5 weeks from now. It's so dependent. And I would say I'm not personally too worried about determining if it's successful from my standpoint. I'm more so focused on them and how they see it to be successful. I would say that I do believe that most of my clients do get some form of change, and from that subset, most of them it's the change that they're looking for. Um, with my intention setting, I'm always quick to say, let's set some intentions. Let's come in looking to work on something, but here lies the nuance of it. Hold that intention loosely. The medicine will give you not necessarily exactly what you want, but it'll often give you what you need. And it may be a little unclear in the moment, but sit on it for a little bit. Let's give it some time and space and see how that works out. And more times than not, it does tend to work out and offer the insights that were needed.
I've got one more question for you, and then I think we're gonna wrap it for today. However, Jake, I've got so many more questions I want to ask you. So, if it's okay, can we do this again sometime soon?
Oh, I would love to.
Excellent. Let's plan to do that. But that wasn't my question actually. That was one of my questions, but that wasn't my real. But so my real question is, to end this today, um, I still feel a lot of people are listening or watching, and they're just in that bad space, whether it's a relationship or a job or something like that. And they're saying to themselves, yeah, but I just can't do anything now. There are plenty of people like that. And you and I were probably in that situation before, and I know I was. And like you said, like I had to go through a really tough time after my divorce to get to where I am now. And I can honestly say, and I have a feeling you can say the same thing. Like, every day is a blessing for me now because I love what I do. I love where I am. I'm looking up at mountains here. I'm exactly where I want to be in my life. Exactly. And I feel that you are as well. However, there are people that are following this and they're not. But they're afraid to take that first step. They're just afraid to rock the boat because fear the unknown. So my final question on today's episode is what do you say to those people that just say, I know something's wrong. I just can't do anything about it now.
The first step would be find some stillness and listen. And listen for the next steps because they usually do come. But first show some devotion to your process, however that looks. Again, for me, it's fasting or physical fitness tends to get me there. Meditation as well. But everyone's first step, like that crack of the window that we chatted about, letting some light in, looks different, and acknowledging that. And obviously, this podcast is kind of centered around psilocybin mushrooms, and work I do is centered around psychedelics. But I want to state very, very plainly that psychedelics aren't the answer for everyone, and that's very fair to admit. And for a lot of folks, they could find that same place through meditation or yoga practice or journaling practice or community, ecstatic dance. There are so many avenues, so many things to try. It's a matter of, again, listening to yourself and listening what feels right to try.
And I think it's safe to say that, and again, yeah, this show is absolutely based on psilocybin and what you do in your daily life helping other people. That's based on psilocybin. But I think it's safe to say, and let's see if you agree with me, that if you've got some just shitty things going on in your life, just taking some psilocybin and hoping for the best is not gonna do the trick. Would you agree with that?
100%. I think that it is a common perception around the world of psychedelics right now. There's so much energy and it's great. And I'm glad that there's been this re-revolution, this awakening. But there, along with that, comes some headlines and 60 Minutes doing stories, and New York Times putting out articles of 20 years of therapy in one session. And while that's great, that's very rarely the case, especially for someone who's not doing the work beforehand. You need to till the soil. You need to first till the soil, because if you're trying to sow a seed in some of this Utah clay we have here without tilling it and amending it and putting compost in it, the rose isn't going to grow. So in the preparation, and that's, why it's an equally important part to the ceremony and the integration, the preparation is tilling the soil. And tilling the soil is doing the work and devoting yourself to the cause of the healing or whatever it is, the expansion, whatever it is you're working on. But it's not a magic pill. And we live in a Western culture where for so long we've been prescribed magic pills that affect our brains in such ways that they end basically just numb us to emotions. This is the complete opposite. This will make you feel emotions. But that could be really scary sometimes. So it's about doing the prep work beforehand to create that space where you can feel the emotions through ceremony, feeling them, and then through integration, taking the necessary steps to have lasting change in your life.
Yeah, like I say to people all the time, you've got to do this work. This is not like popping a pharmaceutical, like taking an SSRI and then going about your normal business and just hoping for the best. You've got to put the work into this. So if you're with us here, please, if you find yourself in a very rough situation in your life, don't just think that by dosing some psilocybin, it's going to change everything. That's not the way it works. So I just want to leave you with that. Please, you've got to do what we've talked about, at least start this way, what we've talked about in this show. Jake, thank you so much for your time today. As a matter of fact, if you can, I want to share something especially with our viewers right now. If you're listening, you might appreciate this, but if you're watching, Jake, come over here for a second and be with, because I got to share this. This is really funny. We met at a tea shop in Salt Lake City, but we couldn't sit at the same table because we're getting bleed over from the microphone, so it was echoing. But with me, so take those out for us, because that's gonna, yeah. Anyway, listen. Thank you so much for being here, man. You're such great energy, and I really appreciate it. And we're gonna do this again, right?
I can't wait. It was an incredible pleasure.
I feel the same way. So guys, hang tight. Be with us, because we're gonna have this guy back. He's awesome, and I'm glad I met him. So thanks again, and remember, I put out a brand new episode every Wednesday and Friday. Microdose U, both on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Check the show notes. I've got some very important links that you can get some resources, and also my website, microdoseu.com, and that's microdose just with the letter U tacked on the end of it, microdoseu.com. Fairly new website. It's got some really good stuff for you there. Just hang with us, and we're here to help. I'm here to help. And as I say, Jake, I say at the end of every single episode, and this is no exception, I look at my listeners and my followers and my friends. I call them nakama, which is a word that means kind of like our tribe, our family, our group of like-minded people. And I say, I love you. And I really do. Thanks so much for being here. And thanks again, Jake. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
See you guys later.